I filed for divorce. Don't even dream of getting the property. The house is now in my mom's name, the car and business in my brother's. Goodbye, loser. From today you're broke. My husband thought he was the smartest, tried to trap me, but just 24 hours later, police knocked on his door. My name is Maya Ellis, I'm 32. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. The kitchen echoed with the replay of his voicemail. My husband's triumphant broadcast that he'd divested me of everything. We'd argued, yes, but never like that. Public, cruel, final. He thought the legal paperwork he'd forged in a sleepy Sunday haze would be the last word. He thought he'd won before the judge or a lawyer even saw a signature. He was wrong because he'd underestimated two things I'd quietly built: records and patience. When he left for a meeting that afternoon, chest high with victory, I didn't call a lawyer. I did something quieter first. I sat at our dining table and made a list. Account numbers, dates of transfers, texts asking me to cover this one, the time-stamped emails where he promised to reimburse me for business expenses. I dug up receipts, mortgage payments I'd made, car insurance statements in my name, the original business registration that listed me as a co-owner. Every favor he'd ever asked for had been logged by me, not out of spite, but because I knew one day someone might need proof that I'd been keeping the lights on. That night, I recorded the voicemail he'd left and forwarded it to an attorney I'd met months ago at a nonprofit board meeting. A woman who respected facts and moved faster than gossip. I attached the file, then another. Screenshots of the forged documents he'd bragged about. The email subject was succinct: possible fraud, please advise. Meanwhile, I packed a small bag. In the morning, the police would come, not for me but for him. By dawn, my phone vibrated with a single email. Subject: proceeding. My attorney had wasted no time. Attached was a list of immediate steps: asset verification, injunction filings, and a note in bold: do not confront him directly. Let the law do the talking. For the first time in months, I obeyed silence. By 8 a.m. I was sitting in my car outside our joint business, the one he'd just transferred to his brother's name. Through the tinted window, I watched him swagger across the parking lot, waving his coffee, greeting employees with that practiced smirk of invincibility. The man looked untouchable, confident in his deception. Inside, my lawyer's paralegal was already waiting at the county clerk's office, filing an emergency stay on all transfers pending investigation. Every asset he'd moved in the last week, house, car, business, was temporarily frozen. He didn't know it yet, but his little empire had been put on pause. At 11:32 a.m. my phone buzzed again. From Detective Alvarez. Mrs. Ellis, thank you for providing the recordings and financial records. We'll be reaching out to your husband this afternoon. Please remain available for a statement. I exhaled, shaky but grounded. That evening when I returned to my apartment, my husband's number lit up the screen. 20 missed calls. 5 voicemails. I didn't listen to any of them. Instead, I placed my phone face down, poured myself a glass of water, and finally turned on some music. Something I hadn't done since the marriage started unraveling. At 9:14 p.m., my lawyer texted one line that made my pulse slow to calm rhythm. Search warrant approved. He'll get his knock tomorrow. I looked out the window at the still night. Tomorrow wasn't revenge, it was restoration. For once, he'd hear silence not as surrender but as strategy. At exactly 7:02 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message from Detective Alvarez. Officers en route for property verification. Please remain home. I didn't need to imagine the look on his face when that knock landed. The same front door he'd slammed in mine when I moved out was now the one the police would step through with a warrant bearing his name. I brewed coffee, steady hands for once. Every sip reminded me that justice wasn't cinematic. It was methodical. It smelled like paperwork and burnt toast. By 8:15 my phone lit up again. Private number. I let it ring. Then came the voicemail. Maya, please. They're saying fraud, I just need to talk. You don't understand, this was all a miscommunication. Delete. My lawyer called next. They found the documents, she said. Every transfer tied to your signature has metadata linking back to his devices. You're clear, Maya. He's in trouble. Clear. The word landed like oxygen. Around noon, a local news alert pinged my screen. Business owner under investigation for asset fraud after divorce filing. His photo sat under the headline, smirk replaced by exhaustion. The group chats from mutual friends exploded, some defending him, others stunned. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. At sunset, I walked to the window and watched the police cars still parked outside our former business. The sirens had gone quiet, but the blue lights flickered against the glass like ghosts of every warning I'd ignored. Ethan texted me from work. Justice isn't revenge, it's peace with paperwork. I smiled faintly. Exactly. That night, as I finally turned off my phone, I realized something. I didn't want him punished. I just wanted the truth to have a voice, and now it did. The next morning, headlines had already taken over social media. Local entrepreneur under investigation for financial misconduct in divorce case. Underneath, comments piled up. People who once toasted our marriage now whispering in digital corners. I sat in my small rented apartment, sunlight spilling through blinds, scrolling without emotion. My ex-husband Daniel always loved being admired. Now, every notification was his downfall. A knock on my door startled me. It was Detective Alvarez again, polite, professional but direct. "Mrs. Ellis," he said, "we've seized the property transfer records. You'll be contacted about restitution. Most assets were moved fraudulently. So, everything he tried to hide will likely revert to your name," he confirmed. "But more importantly, you're officially listed as the complainant, not the accused. You did everything right." After he left, I stood there a moment, leaning against the door. Relief didn't come like fireworks. It came quietly, like exhaling after years of holding your breath. Later, I drove past the old house. Police tape fluttered in the wind, pale yellow against the brick facade. The windows were dark, the front lawn overgrown. For all his talk about winning, Daniel had lost the one thing he couldn't buy: control. My phone buzzed again, a message from his mother. "I don't know what you told the police, but you've destroyed our family." I didn't reply. She'd believed every lie he'd told, that I was unstable, manipulative, emotional. But emotional didn't mean weak. That night, I sent my lawyer one final document, a request to donate half of the business proceeds, once recovered, to a women's legal aid fund. Let Daniel keep his silence. I had purpose now. And purpose, I'd learned, is louder than revenge. By Friday, the chaos had rippled through Daniel's entire network. His brother's bank accounts were frozen. His mother's new property title had been nullified. And his once thriving business had been officially placed under state review. I didn't celebrate. I just went back to work. The office felt lighter that day. People smiled differently at me, not with pity but with quiet respect. The woman they thought would crumble had instead documented, strategized, and outmaneuvered. At lunch, my coworker Jenna slid into the chair across from me. "You really did it," she whispered. "You actually fought back." "I didn't fight him," I said, stirring my coffee. "I just stopped protecting him." That evening, my lawyer called again. "Daniel's bail hearing is scheduled for Monday," she said. "He's trying to claim the documents were signed under your consent. Do you have that email chain we discussed?" I smiled faintly. "The one where he forgot to delete the draft?" "Already forwarded." "Good," she said. "Then you've just sealed it." After the call, I opened my old photo album, the one labeled Life Before. I looked at the pictures, our wedding smiles, vacations, dinners. In every one he was at the center, perfectly framed. I was always slightly blurred, half in focus, half forgotten. I closed the album. That chapter was over. As the weekend arrived, Daniel's name trended online again, this time accompanied by words he'd never imagined would describe him: fraudulent, controlling, exposed. At sunset, I walked outside, barefoot on the cool grass of my small backyard. The world felt quiet again. For years, I'd tried to prove I was enough for him. Now I realized, I'd always been more than enough. He just wasn't capable of seeing it. And that blindness had cost him everything. The following Monday, courtroom air smelled of cold marble and tension. Daniel stood across from me in his tailored suit, his charm cracked into something desperate. The judge's gaze was sharp, the kind that slices through ego and pretense alike. My lawyer, calm and precise, began the hearing with one sentence that shifted the entire room. "Your Honor, we have verifiable proof of forged transfers and fraudulent intent committed after the divorce filing." Daniel's smirk faltered. His attorney scrambled through folders. muttering objections that died before they reached full sentences. Then came the recordings, the voicemail where he bragged about moving assets, the digital trail linking every transaction back to his devices. When the forensic accountant displayed the timestamp metadata, Daniel's face drained of color. His confidence melted into something pitiful. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Ellis, this is deliberate deception under oath. Do you understand the severity?" He nodded mutely. I didn't look away. For years, I'd been conditioned to shrink when he spoke, to soothe when he shouted, to carry the guilt he deserved. Today I simply existed, unshaken. My lawyer rested her hand lightly on my arm. "He's facing charges of fraud and asset concealment. You'll retain ownership of all joint property." It wasn't triumph I felt. It was closure stitched with exhaustion. Outside the courthouse, reporters hovered, microphones extended. "Mrs. Ellis, any comment on your husband's arrest?" I smiled faintly. There's nothing left to say. The truth spoke for itself. That evening I drove past the police station where his car sat impounded. The same luxury model he once bragged about, now wrapped in caution tape. I parked for a moment, whispering quietly to the night, "Goodbye, Daniel. Enjoy your empire of lies." And then I drove home, free, not victorious, just finally done. Weeks passed, and with every headline that mentioned his name, I felt a strange mix of sadness and release. The man who once boasted about control now faced 3 criminal charges: fraud, perjury, and property concealment. His empire had crumbled faster than I could have imagined. The court appointed a financial trustee to handle asset redistribution. I didn't even attend the second hearing. My lawyer sent me a simple update. All properties reverted. You are now the sole legal owner. That night I walked through the old house, my house now, in complete silence. Dust floated in the evening sun like memory fragments. The walls still smelled faintly of his cologne, and for a brief second the weight of everything hit me. This was the same living room where I'd once begged him to listen, to treat me like a partner instead of a pawn. The same kitchen where he'd told me, "You'll never make it without me." And yet here I was, not just surviving but standing tall in the ruins of his arrogance. I opened the windows wide, letting cold autumn air rush through the rooms. It felt like exorcism. Ethan stopped by later with takeout and 2 glasses of wine. "So," he said smiling, "what does freedom taste like?" I thought for a moment. "Like silence that doesn't scare me anymore." He nodded. "That's peace, Maya. The rare kind." We sat on the empty floor eating noodles from paper boxes, laughing about things that weren't about him. For the first time the house didn't feel haunted. It felt mine. Before bed I texted my lawyer. "Thank you for believing me before anyone else did." Her reply came instantly. "You believed yourself first. That's what changed everything." And she was right. 1 year later I stood in the same courthouse. Not for another hearing, but to sign the final paperwork confirming Daniel's conviction. He'd accepted a plea deal, avoiding a trial that would have dragged on for years. The restitution order awarded me full control of the business and the home, along with damages for emotional and financial distress. But the real victory wasn't the money. It was peace. Outside, reporters waited again, cameras poised. One of them asked, "Mrs. Ellis, what would you say to women who feel powerless in their marriages?" I smiled softly. "Document everything. Believe your instincts. And never confuse silence with peace." The clip went viral within hours. My inbox filled with messages. Women thanking me, men apologizing for not noticing their own wives' quiet suffering. I didn't feel like a hero. Just someone who finally stopped apologizing for existing. Later that evening I drove to the lake near my old college campus. The same place I used to go when life felt too heavy to carry. The sunset burned gold across the water. I took out the last piece of paper Daniel ever gave me, our marriage certificate, and fed it gently to the wind. It broke apart, drifting across the water until it was gone. When I got home, Ethan was waiting on the porch with 2 mugs of coffee. "So," he said with a grin, "does freedom still taste like silence?" I laughed. "No," I said, watching steam rise from the mug. "Now it tastes like peace and maybe a little victory." As night settled around us, I glanced at the glowing sign over my business. Ellis Legal Consulting. Built from ashes but mine entirely. I whispered to myself. He thought he took everything. But he only taught me how to keep what's real.